Hello, it's David from DN Cognitive Counseling, and today I want to continue with my parenting webinar. I said I would be talking about trust and respect, and because I'm trusting and respecting you, I will be doing exactly what I said. That's called modeling. A lot of times parents do not recognize that the reason why their children have issues with trust and respect specifically is because parents say, do things because I say so. Think about that for a moment. If the government were to make rules and say just because I said so, it would give people pause and people would have less trust in those types of rules. As opposed to saying, well, the reason why we have this rule is because we're worried about safety. Or the reason why we have this rule is because we have to function as a government. And when people understand the rules and understand what the purpose of the rules are, it gives them more faith and understanding of those rules and makes them much more likely to follow them. But trust and respect is a two-way street. And a lot of parents don't recognize that the things that they do and they say are modeled by their children. Example, the term please and thank you. How many times have you told your children it's important to say please and thank you? But you'll say to your child, get me this, do this, get that. But you don't model the please and the thank you. Later on, you'll hear your child telling their other kids in the house, get me this or do this. And you'll say, you're not being respectful. That becomes a situation where the child doesn't understand why you're doing one thing but saying another. And it breeds distrust in the relationship. So it is important to recognize when you're teaching a child in this relationship building process, trust and respect, that it's important that you model it appropriately. Don't do things to your children that you don't want to see them doing. So one of the major aspects of trust and respect, the first I would say is acknowledging the child's right to their own feelings. And think about that for a minute. We live in a society today where belief systems and the way that people see things almost becomes threatening. I deal with a lot of people who are looking for relationships, and they'll say, well, I can't date somebody who has a different belief system than me. Now, with certain things it's practical, but with other things it becomes only political, where it's nothing practical in your life. It's that their belief becomes threatening to you. That is a form of intolerance and actually very dangerous. We want children to be able to express their point of view, even if it's wrong. They're entitled to their opinion, as you're entitled to your opinion, even if it's wrong. And you always want to be able to accept the fact of listening to somebody else's opinion, being okay with their opinion, being okay with them listening to your opinion, and being okay with agreeing to disagree. And when you agree to disagree in a respectful way, you're actually honoring that relationship. And that's a very important skill to teach children. The ability to let them have the right to their own feelings. Another aspect of trust and respect is that children are going to like to have their own friends. How many times do you tell your kids, I don't like this friend or I don't like that friend? Now, of course, if that friend is doing something dangerous or problematic, you do have to address that. But if it's just a matter of personalities, all the times you do that gives distrust to that relationship. And again, the child will then grow to distrust you. That's how it works. It's a parallel process, as they call it. Activities. I'm going to give you a story, something that happened many, many years ago. I had a child that I was seeing who loved to play football. And the mother was very, very nervous about allowing him to do that because he could get hurt. And she wasn't wrong. I mean, football is a dangerous sport and, people can get hurt. But this kid didn't like playing football. He loved it. He had a desire, a real love for the game. And I had to work with the mother in helping her understand that by not allowing him to play the game, she was actually causing real harm, and as opposed to the potential for harm. And sure enough, as soon as she let him, again after setting ground rules, he became a different child, and it was a whole different aspect. And again, it was something that he needed to do. It's sort of like the person that has a need to play music or a need to sing. There are people that at times have an inner innate desire for something that is so strong that as you cut it out from them, it causes them damage. And she had to understand and learn that. And it became a whole different relationship because she trusted and respected him enough, despite her own reservations, to allow him to do that. The other aspect of trust and respect that's very important, and that is helping the child to become more independent. A lot of times we don't recognize that we're promoting dependency in relationships. And when you do that, it makes somebody distrustful and fearful. I'm sure many of you know a situation where there are two parents. One is what we call the good time Charlie. No rules, no structure, lets the kids do whatever they want. And then you have the other home where they're more structured, more rules, and all those things are the exact opposites. What generally happens in those types of relationships? Well, the good time Charlie, the kids love it. They enjoy it. But as they get older, they don't respect that parent. They don't have that same relationship as they do with the parent that helped them to become independent. They see the other parent as somebody that they need to parent and becomes problematic in other ways, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in the future. But you helping your child to promote their independence by learning skills, they develop more trust in you. So you, in turn, by trusting and respecting them and their ability to do things, then help them to promote that self-trust. And by you helping the child promote their independence, it helps the child to be able to grow. A sense of their self-esteem gets built. They feel they're able to do more things, and they feel better about themselves. And that's a plus on both sides. One, the fact that they have the independence, and the second, that they feel better in the relationship with you. Allow for privacy. It's very important that children have a sense that they have a right to their privacy. Now, obviously, younger children have less of a right than older children, but it's important that you give them that ability for that privacy. You walk in the child and they're 4 years old and they're getting dressed and they say, "No, I'm private." Don't make fun of that. Respect it enough, because by you respecting that, again, it's a modeling behavior that they're more likely then to become more respectful later on when you talk about your privacy and what you don't want. It's a very important aspect to remember that we're modeling here a lot of this behavior for children in terms of building that healthy relationship. The next one is also incredibly important, and it's a very difficult one. Respecting the feelings of the other parent, even when you totally disagree. It doesn't mean agreeing, but the way in which you deal with that disagreement, children will see, and they pick up on, and they see how that works. Now, when you're living with somebody in the house and you both are parenting, that makes it difficult. When you are in two separate households, that makes it much more difficult, especially in the respecting of the other parent. But if you could put aside your own emotions, looking out for the best welfare of your child, then putting aside that to respect the feelings. Again, I am not saying just do what the other parent wants, and especially if it's detrimental to the child, but showing the children that you can be respectful of the other parent's feeling, even when you totally disagree, is a very powerful teaching tool in building that trust and respect in the relationship. And the last aspect that I'm going to talk about in terms of trust and respect tonight is believe your children. You see, if you are a parent who's constantly thinking your child is not telling you the truth, or you're always skeptical about that, you're going to be in a situation where the child's going to always feel like they shouldn't be telling you the truth. So, especially with younger children, it's important to go ahead and believe them when they're explaining things to you. And again, even if necessarily their imagination might be off or they might be, going off on some sort of tangent, it's important that you respect them enough in that relationship to hear them out and not be dismissive of what they're saying. When you do that, it helps to build the glue again for the communication. I work with a lot of adolescents, and it's very interesting. I've had many come back to me and share with me and ask me questions that they would never ask their own parents. And the reason why that happens is because I model that trust and respect in the relationship. Now, if your child is just thinking about using a drug or engaging in certain sexual behaviors, wouldn't you want to be able to have that conversation with them in a way that's straightforward and honest? Or would you rather a situation where they're doing all that behind your back because there's no trust and respect in that relationship? This is a very important point in parenting. And the better relationship that you have with your child, the better chance you give it that those things are something that will be helpful to prevent a lot of tragedy in the future. I thank you again for joining me. I hope you found this helpful. If you find value in what I'm doing and you'd like to support me, please go to Subcribe-star and become a patron to this endeavor. And if you can't, that's fine too. Please like the video if you found it helpful and you liked it. And please subscribe. But more importantly than subscribing, please share this with other people who are in situations with their children or having situations with their children. I know therapy is a very expensive endeavor. And sometimes getting this information and being able to ask questions could be very, very helpful. And so far, I've gotten a number of questions that have been very good. But I know there's a lot more people with a lot of questions out there in a lot of situations. So if you want, please help them and spread the word. I thank you very much, and I will see you next time, where I will be discussing encouragement and support in relationships. So that will be the next endeavor.